This happened some years ago during my sophomore year at the University of Michigan. It was during finals week and I was down on campus studying for the multiple exams I had that day. After studying in a local coffee shop, rest in peace Espresso Royale, I decided to hunker down in one of the academic buildings, Mason Hall, to use the computer lab/printers. First, however, I needed to make a detour to the bathroom. As finals had started and lectures had ended, the campus was in a liminal state. Everywhere was empty, except for the bustling main study areas. Thinking I could use this to my advantage, I took the elevator to the 4th floor, mostly classrooms, to use the restroom that I thought would be the quietest. Blasting music in my earbuds, I walk in, see that it appears empty, and hop into a stall to do my business. Everything is going well as I scroll on my phone, at this point having put my earbuds away. Then I notice commotion 2 stalls to my right of the stall opening. Not odd, right? Just another student who had the same idea as me. After a weirdly long minute or so, I finally see a figure pass my stall. He walks toward the exit in this U-shaped room, only to return after what sounded like getting a view of the sink side of this room. Finishing up in my stall, I then watched this man enter the stall diagonally to me, hold the door at a 45-degree angle open, and peer around at me. Now I am sitting there just trying to process this middle-aged man seemingly try to peep at me. I tried to ignore him and just wait him out, but he stayed staring. He then began shifting around as if he were trying to adjust his view. Annoyed, I ended up saying, "Is there something I can frickin' do for you?" Hoping to get him to leave. Nope, he still sits there peering around this door. I then say, "What the heck are you doing?" No response, just his glare. At this point, he begins shifting around the stall area, entering other random stalls and roaming the area in between both sets of stalls, the whole time looking at me through the crack of the door. At this point, my anger has turned into fear. Fear to open the stall and come face to face with whoever is brazen enough to do this. Something about his movements and unrelenting stare made me feel like I was some type of prey to him. Around this time, I began contemplating calling someone or calling DPSS, University of Michigan, or security police. Thankfully, though, someone then walks into the bathroom. The creep then immediately leaves the stall he's posted up in and leaves the room as I can hear him open and close the door. Hoping he's gone, I begin to put on my bag to then hear the door open, close, then open again as if somebody had just walked in to only instantly leave. In the moment and looking back, I am pretty sure that this was the creep coming back, yet leaving when he saw the other student at the sink. As I hear the sink turn off, I recognize this as my best chance to get the heck out of there. Walking out with the student, I don't mention the experience and I'm just focused on getting away from that restroom. My plan was to go down 1 floor, the 3rd, and call DPSS. I figured I had to report this guy in case he tried to pull this again and assumed the police would want to meet me at the scene. Flustered, I head down. Thankfully, there was no sign of him. Coming out of the doors of the north stairwell, I plop down on the bench, take a little bit of a breather, and begin dialing the number. Yet, before I could hit call, I saw the creep walk through the same stairwell I came from. He's at a speed walking pace. Right as he sees me, though, he stops outside the doorway. He then begins a far calmer and casual walk down the hall past me. As he does, he stares at me and peers into empty classrooms. As he goes down the hall, I see him around the corner to the other hall on this floor. The layout is a T-shape. Spooked, I spring up and begin jogging down the stairs. As I descend, I call the police. I explain the whole situation to the dispatcher as I move swiftly down the stairs and down the hall to the main lobby of the building. Being on this first floor makes me feel far better as there is a decent crowd. I end up sitting below the staircase in the lobby next to a vending machine area. I finish my call and I'm told to wait for an officer to arrive. I sit there relieved being around other people, thoughts of the creep's intentions racing through my mind. But like clockwork, I see him again. I get a good view of him this time and I'm a bit calmer. He had a beard and wore work boots, cargo shorts, and a tucked-in t-shirt. Not a normal look for a guy of his age roaming a college campus. He didn't immediately spot me thanks to the crowd. As he walks down the hall from the stairs I had just run down, He stops at the vending machine area looking around. I bow my head and watch through my periphery in an attempt to blend in more. After about a minute of him scanning the room, he walks away. Shortly after the cop arrived, he essentially tells me that there's no way he'll be able to find this guy, but he'll take a look at the bathroom anyways. Annoyed, I take his card and leave. I end up taking a convoluted route to the undergraduate library through the grad library. My hopes are to prevent this creep from seeing me in the open area. As I get into the undergrad library lobby, I sit down staring at the door, fully expecting the creep to walk in again. Thankfully, he makes no appearance. I end up running into a roommate who jokes I almost got assaulted and then sit down for my remaining few hours to try and fail to focus on studying. To the random creep who stalked me throughout the entirety of Mason Hall, let's not meet again. I am a 31-year-old woman. This happened a few years back. I was walking from a friend's house to meet my son's father at a bar we frequented in those days. It was winter, icy, and snowing with giant piles of snow all around. I was walking from a friend's house around 9 p.m. down an alley that served as a driveway area for many houses. Not a great neighborhood, but not particularly bad either. I was wearing my apocalypse boots. Waterproof, knee-high, winterproof. I usually have headphones in blaring music while I walk, but that night for some reason I decided not to. In hindsight, that is what saved me. I'm about the equivalent of 2 to 3 blocks away from the bar. There's a younger guy, early 20s, walking about 50 feet behind me. Hey. I turn around and it seems like he's talking to someone else. Hey. I look back, then continue walking. Yeah, you. No, don't turn around. I start to walk faster as I realize he's getting closer. Ahead of me, I see an SUV running, backed out of a parking spot but blocking my path. I turn around. There is another guy. The door to the SUV opens and there are a couple of guys in it looking at me. One gets out and stands by the open door. I turn to look at the guy behind me out of nowhere. About 5 more guys come out surrounding me from a distance, slowly closing in. The realization that they were hiding behind piles of plowed snow hits me. I realized they were just standing and watching me. A couple of them had their phones out and were recording something that was about to go down. Nobody was smiling, but they were closing in on me, trying to get me to walk to the SUV. Fight or flight kicked in and I decided I didn't want to know what was about to happen. I wanted to catch them off guard, so instead of running forward, I bolted to the left. I was thankful for these boots. I could run across the ice no problem. I ended up cutting through a few yards and I made it to the bar. A few years back, I went to go meet my sister at a mutual friend's apartment after I got off work. It was wintertime in most of Canada land. We get very cold and snowy winters. So here's the setting. Me on my way through the icy snow to meet up with a group of friends. Now that that's out of the way, I get to our friend's apartment and everything is going as fabulously as a Friday night after work could go. Mastodon blaring, good friends, and a few joints being passed around. Everybody was pretty drunk by the time I got there, and since I was driving, I only had a beer or two. Around 2 a.m., my sister and I decided to head back home since we were both living at our parents' at the time. Now, I should mention that our friend's apartment at the time was not necessarily in the nicest part of town. Many of what we like to call Winnipeg's finest get knifed around there, so it wasn't the most ideal place to be leaving at 2 in the morning. But whatever, we had to get home, right? So, my sister, being the genius that she is, had worn heels that night, and about 4 feet of snow. Yeah, super smart. We had to walk through a back alley to get to where I had packed, and as I had mentioned, everyone but me was pretty tanked by the end of the night, including my sister. So there we were, walking through this sketchy back alley, and she decides to be artistic and start taking pictures with her phone. I had been walking ahead of her, and was about 10 feet in front when I turned to see what the heck she was doing. My heart nearly sank when I looked back and saw that there was a very not so appealing looking man, walking not 15 feet behind my sister. I tried to not make it seem like I was frightened because I had no idea what this dude might do, so I just yelled to my sister to get a move on, and nodded my head in his direction. She turned to see him and it clicked that she really needed to haul ass, just as we both started to speed at our pace. The random stranger began to meet ours. I could see the car about 20 feet away and knew that if we didn't start running, we would not be able to get to the car in time, and he would have caught up to us. Just as things were getting bad, they got worse, and all I could hear from behind us was the most utterly creepy, bone-chilling voice call out, "Girls." It almost sounded like he was coming from the very bottom of his gut. At this point I thought, screw this noise, and just screamed, "Run." Now, you have all seen at least one girl try to run in heels. It isn't great. Add to that the fact there is at least 4 feet of snow. You can imagine it wasn't easy for her to get her ass over to the car. Thankfully, I was an athlete and sprinted my little legs over to the car just in time to get it unlocked and then lock it right back up again. It was one of those moments where I was fumbling with the keys to get them in the ignition, and when I finally got the car started, I looked back and saw the creeper like 5 feet behind our car with a giant block of ice, ready to throw out my back window. I noped the heck out of there as hard as my foot could press on the gas pedal, just as he launched the ice block. My drunk-ass sister was calm in about 5 minutes. I was nearly about to piss myself. I don't know if this is an East Coast thing, for Americans of course, but in my little town, there's a twice the ice station. Basically, you can fill up water jugs of 5 gallons and get ice packs for cheaper than you can in the grocery store. I went out a few nights ago to get some water because who wants to be drinking tap water? My husband was home, and because I'm kind of heavily pregnant, he insisted that he go instead. I wish he would have. It was about 1 a.m., dark for miles and in the middle of nowhere. As I get out of my car, I open the back seat to get the gallon jugs and close the door. As soon as I do, a dark blue truck turned van pulls up perpendicular behind me, presumably so I couldn't get out if I decided to get back in my car. Alarm bells start going off and the bells start screaming at me when the slide door opens and 2 quite large men step out. It's about a 20-foot distance between them and me, so I do the first thing I think of. Pull out my phone. I answered a quote-unquote phone call from my husband and answered with, "Hey honey, yeah, I'm almost home." As soon as they see me answer, one of the guys says, "Shit," and they both get back in the car and peel out of the lot, tires squealing and all. I threw my unfilled jugs back into my car and locked all the doors a million times or more before I broke down and called my husband for real this time. He told me to write down the make and model of the car, color, etc., and we would go to the police station in the morning. About 2 days later, there was breaking news of a pregnant woman that went missing. She was abducted. As her father had sworn up and down, she wouldn't just up and leave. I know it was the men in the blue van. I've told the police all I know. I don't know if they targeted me because I was a woman all alone in the middle of nowhere, but deep down, I know they targeted me because I was pregnant, and I don't want to think about what would have happened to me or my baby. So, men in the blue car, screw you and let's never meet again. I'm female. This story happened when I was a tiny, skinny little 10-year-old. It happened over 3 days and was in a wee town in Scotland. Throughout my childhood, I was a tomboy. All of my friends were guys, and I'd always loved playing guys' games and getting dirty. The day my story takes place was no different. During the first day we saw him, the guys and I had found a pile of builder sand, and we were over the moon. The sand pile was huge. In my child's mind, I felt like a mountain climber, and we would climb and slide down the pile, fight with the sand, etc. So all of this was going on when I noticed a boy on a BMX bike watching us. He had something in his hand, but I couldn't tell what it was at that point. I ignore him and keep playing. Next thing I know, I look up and the guy on the bike is still there, but seems a little closer now. I feel a bit creeped out when I look at him watching us. There's a glassy look in his eyes, like he's in a trance or something. After a minute, he seems to come out of it and he comes over to us. The guy on the bike says, "Do any of you like Michael Jackson?" None of us answer. So he asks again more forcefully this time. Do any of you like Michael Jackson? I pipe up. No, not really. So he says, well, none of you will want this video of his concerts then. It turns out that is what I had seen in his hand before, so since we didn't like or want the Michael Jackson video, he seemed to decide the only thing to do was throw it with force onto the ground, jump off his bike and smash it into bits with his foot. Then he got on his bike and rode off. My friends and I stood there for a minute wondering what had just happened. Then we went back to playing in the sand. The following day, day 2, we were all back at this pile of builder sand and having a great time. And the same guy on the bike turned up again. This time he tried to give us sweeties. We said no, and he shrugged and went off on his bike again. But I noticed him circling us. Like, he'd go around the block, turn back, and go around again. The next day, we were at the builder sand on day 3. He turns up again. This time, he came right on over to us and asked if we wanted to help him find a box of fireworks that he'd hidden in the woods, which were alongside where there was also a lot of car parking garages. I didn't get a weird vibe from him this time, and I was a trusting kid, and I thought maybe he was just having a bad day when he smashed the video. And anyways, we all thought fireworks sounded great, and the guy on the bike said we needed to help him find them. The first red flag I should have seen was the fact that he apparently hid them, but didn't know where. And another red flag came next when he said that we would all need to split up. All the boys go one way to look, and he and I would go the other. We started along the woods, and he said to me, "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to kill someone, like to watch someone die?" I chose to ignore this question, brushed it off as a silly thing to say, never thought he was serious about an answer, and said nothing. Kept walking, and eventually he pointed to some bushes and trees at the side of a garage, saying he thought he had hidden the fireworks in there. So, there's another red flag I never saw, luring me alone in the dark, dense cover. I stupidly trusted him and off I went, excited about fireworks, skipping into the bushes. I began looking for the box of fireworks eagerly and said I couldn't see them. Next thing I know, he grabbed my hair in the back of my head, and I saw him flick a knife blade up and this weird look in his eyes as he pressed the sharp side of the blade against my throat. My entire life flashed before my eyes, and I remember thinking I would never see my kid again. I didn't know what to do. It was then I remembered what it would be like to kill someone common. Was he going to kill me? I thought. I was now paralyzed by this, and then I heard something like many footsteps coming through the bushes. I thought maybe he had other people wanting to get on a murder, but it was a dog. A huge, massive brown dog. More like a lion in size than a regular dog. This thing, without hesitation, jumped on top of the guy, took him down to the ground with no effort at all, and pinned him there, freeing me. But I was still frozen to the spot. The dog looked at me and barked at me as if to say, "Run." And I did run, like I had a rocket in my backside. I don't know what happened with the boy and the dog after I left. I don't remember seeing a collar on the dog or any people around who might have been its owners. The woodland garages were not usual places for dog walkers either, so I don't know to this day how, where, or why this dog appeared, but it probably saved my life and I never saw it again. When I got home, I collapsed in the kitchen and babbled to my mom about what happened. The police were called. They did what they had to do, but the guy was never found. I think the guy had murder in his mind and he chose me. I think because I was a very small 10-year-old, probably thinking I was the weaker target, rather than one of the boys. So, scary Michael Jackson BMX knife guy, let's not meet ever again. When I was 6 years old, my favorite thing to do was explore the woods by my house. I never went alone. My friend Ethan liked to join me, but sometimes it would just be me and my neighbor Katrina, who was 7 at the time. To get to the woodsy area, you had to first cross a large tree fallen over a small ravine. Something I would never do now, but at that age I was fearless. My friends and I spent many days daring each other to cross back and forth over the tree without using our arms for balance. One particularly dreary summer day, I asked Ethan and Katrina to explore with me, but Ethan wasn't feeling too well, so he stayed home. Katrina and I set off to the obscure path that led to the fallen tree and spent a couple hours in the woods. I remember the smell of the woods and the damp, slippery feel of the leaves beneath my feet. It had rained the night before, and the woods were electric with the sounds of birds chirping and water rushing through the ravine. We were excited. I guess that's why we didn't hear the man approach us. My first thought was to get the heck out of there. I knew all about stranger danger, of course, and I just had this weird feeling about the middle-aged man. Before I could tell Katrina what I was thinking, the man told us we looked like we were great explorers and that he could really use our help, so it was really important to find her soon. I hesitated, but Katrina had always a weakness for puppies, so she agreed to help him look. We set out to look for the missing puppy, but I just kept getting this horrible feeling. Every time we walked towards the direction of the man, he would tell us that he had already looked over there and that we should keep to the other side. By that time, I was done. I was ready to nope out of there, but Katrina wouldn't budge. I told her I was leaving and she said she was going to stay. I wanted to beg her to come with me, but I decided to leave without her because I couldn't stand being in there any longer. I jogged back through the woods, careful to not slip on any damp leaves, but the fallen tree was covered in them, so I had to tiptoe my way across. Halfway across, a chill went through my body, leaving a trail of goosebumps on my skin, and I ran. I ran so fast I forgot how slippery the log was, so I didn't even realize I was falling into the ravine until I had already hit the rocky bottom. I had heard a loud crack, and I looked down to see that my femur was broken and sticking through my skin. Things got foggy after that, but I guess I screamed loud enough for the closest neighbors to call 911. I'm just happy I screamed loud enough to save Katrina. The police and EMTs found me lying in the ravine, crying and grasping at my broken leg. The last thing I remember was pointing towards the woods and telling them to look for Katrina. I woke up the next day with my leg hooked up to the ceiling in traction in a world of pain. My mom was holding my hand and she said that when I was ready, the police would like to talk to me. I asked if I was in trouble, but she said it was nothing like that. They needed to ask me a few questions though. A policeman came in and asked me if I had seen a man in the woods before I broke my leg. I recounted the events that happened and asked if they found Katrina. They had. When I left, the man started asking Katrina about her family, if she had any big scary brothers that would come looking for her if she were out too late. Their conversation was cut short by my screams, and Katrina immediately ran towards the sound. Luckily, the man's reflexes weren't as fast, and even though he tried, he never caught up with her. She said when she looked around at the end of the woods, he was running back into them. She thought that maybe he was going to get help. Turns out, there was no lost puppy. The police never found the creepy man, but they did find a bag hidden in the bushes by where we first spotted him. Inside the bag was some rope, duct tape, and a pair of binoculars. Sometimes I have nightmares about what could have happened that day, and even now I get chills when I go into the woods. I have plenty of stories from over the years, and it takes a lot to scare me, but this one sufficiently freaked me out. I am a big horror movie fan as well, so I feel desensitized to freaky situations. Except this one. This happened about a year ago. I am a male, pretty big guy, ex-football player. I'm in my late 20s, living in a nice neighborhood in Arizona. Needless to say, I don't have much to fear at night. I had 2 roommates living with me at the time, so there always seemed to be someone home with me at night. I got home late from a business trip around midnight, came into the house exhausted, dropped everything and went to bed. I am a heavy sleeper, so it takes something loud to wake me. Then around 3 a.m., I hear a very loud knocking on my door. It sounds like someone is kicking my door down. I'd never heard anything like it before, though it was a Saturday, so I figured my roommates had gone out to the bars and forgotten their keys, but grudgingly stumbled out of bed, walking down the hallway into the dark, and notice all of the bedroom doors are open and no roommates are to be found. Ah, it must be them. They're just messing with me. I arrive at my front door and look through the peephole and see a young woman. Homeless looking, but actually kind of cute. She had a really baggy sweatshirt on with jeans and a beanie. Might I remind you, this is Arizona in the dead of summer. It had to be 95 degrees at this time. That was odd. She was frantic, almost like she was being chased, so I was going to open the door and make sure she was okay. But then she started laughing, like a scary laugh. This stopped me in my tracks, and then she proceeded to yell, "I need to pee. Let me in." Over and over for a good 5 minutes. I just stood behind the door in silence, watching this through the peephole. I wasn't scared at this moment. I was more annoyed, about to yell at her to get out of here. And then all of a sudden, she just turns and hopscotches down my driveway like a child. Just thought to myself, this girl is whacked out on drugs or something. I go back to bed, and 30 minutes later, I'm about to fall back asleep, and that same knock happens again. I'm furious at this point, about to run out there, open the door, and give this woman a piece of my mind. But I look through the peephole first, and it's a male. He is dressed in practically the same outfit as the woman. He is scrawny looking, not a physical presence by any means, but he looks just as whacked out as her. I can see her behind the guy jumping up and down laughing. He is looking into the peephole yelling, "Yo, my girl has to pee. Let us in." Now I'm a little bit freaked out, I'm not gonna lie. I have seen a lot of situations like this in horror movies, so I just back away from the door, go to the kitchen and grab a knife. Go back to my room, sit in my closet. LOL, I figured if they were going to break in, at least they wouldn't see me at first in the closet and I could launch a counterattack. 2 hours pass. No more noises, and I fall asleep in my closet with a knife in hand. Then I hear tapping on my bedroom window. It startles me awake. My bedroom is on the first floor and is accessible from the backyard. The lights are off, so I creep over to the window and push aside slowly one of the blinds. It's the woman peering into my bedroom but not looking directly at me, just subtly tapping the window. And off in the distance was the guy butt naked doing cannonballs in my pool. I instinctively, without thinking, yell, "Hey, get out of my pool," which brings her attention straight to me. We make eye contact and we are inches away from each other, eyes wide open, and she has this curious smile and starts giggling. That freaked me the heck out. I instantly call the cops, tell them some crazy drugged up wackos are in my backyard, and that I fear for my life, to please send someone. Went into my bathroom, locked the door, just waiting for the "here's Johnny" moment to happen. The dispatcher informed me the cops were there, but nobody was outside the house. They must have run off into the alley when the cops showed up. The next day I see the neighborhood watch flyers all over informing us that over the past 3 nights, 6 homes had been broken into, 4 dogs were brutally tortured and killed, and to keep an eye out for any strange people in the neighborhood. Hairs on my neck stood straight up, but I've never heard from or seen those 2 wackos since. I installed an alarm system and got a handgun. I sleep great now, but that look on that woman's face still haunts my dreams. So this happened about 4 to 5 years ago when I was a naive 22-year-old. This might be long, so bear with me. I had been downtown drinking at a bar, catching up with old friends from high school. When the pub closed for the night, we went back to my friend's apartment. We had a few drinks, and before I knew it, it was 4 a.m. She offered me a place on the couch, but I had the waitress at 4 the next day, so I wanted to be home and do some errands before work. I thought I grabbed a $20 for cab fare in case, but I grabbed a $5, so I decided to bus. She lived about a 15 to 20 minute walk to the closest bus stop I needed, so I left her place and started my trek. I was well aware of the dangers of this choice, but being a very young, naive girl, I assumed it would turn out okay since I had been in similar situations before. I called my boyfriend at the time, and that possibly could have been a decision that saved my life that night. As I'm walking over this detour bridge downtown, I was telling him, "It's going really well. I haven't seen a single person out since I started walking." Very shortly after I said that, I hear footsteps running. I looked up at the part of the bridge I was just walking on and paused, mid-run. Directly in front of me was this guy staring right into my eyes. He was panting slightly from the running, but he didn't look like he was drunk, but his eyes were so wide. I'll never forget that image for the rest of my life. I kept walking, try to keep calm as possible. I loudly say to my boyfriend what had just happened, and I describe his physical appearance as best as I could, and as loud as I could. I also tell him my location. I said, "If I stop talking to you for even 30 seconds, call the police and tell them everything I just told you." I decided to look back to see if he was following me, and sure enough, off to the side of the path I was on, under a street light so he was a complete black silhouette, was that guy. standing stiff as a board facing me. I thought my heart was already racing, but that sight nearly gave me a heart attack. I walked faster, and after a minute I looked back over my shoulder, and he was in the exact same pose, just closer now, under a different light post. At this point I had two options: continue on the path I was on that was only partially lit, or make a run for it under the underpass that was extremely well lit. So I ran. I've been playing soccer and track all through high school, so I had some advantage. As I was in the underpass, I heard him sprint. I remember thinking, if you look back now, it could slow you down, but at least you'd know if he was following you or not. So I looked. Thankfully, I looked in time to witness him sprint past the lit area I was in. No time to rest because I assumed he was looking to head me off somewhere. So I kept running until I reached a very busy and populated bus stop. As I was resting from 3 to 4 blocks away, I saw him walking and looking around everywhere. I assumed looking for me. I got home and immediately called the cops, and one finally showed up to my apartment around 8 a.m. He took a statement, but there wasn't much they could do other than watch that area and keep his physical description in their database. The scariest part when I look back is, over the whole course of that ordeal, I never saw him move until I made a run for it. It was like he was some kind of mannequin. Okay, so this just happened to me, female 28, and I'm sure I will not be able to sleep. My boyfriend is not answering the phone. I need to get this out. My company organized an event for the clients and the staff at a luxury hotel. Everyone partied, and I got into my room an hour ago. It is 3:27 in the morning here. I don't know, like 15 minutes ago, a guy entered my room with a bottle of water. It woke me up and I was super scared. He says somebody called from my room to order a bottle of sparkling water. Weird explanation. There is a minibar and there is a corridor in the room before entering where I am in the bed. So basically I am half naked in my bed. He comes closer to me at the level of the table, apologizing for the inconvenience, but he is still there. And I kid you not, he starts talking to me, saying how he is going to be in trouble, and how someone called and he is so sorry and the others got in the hotel super drunk, and it must have been a mistake. I swear, he had been standing super close to my bed for 5 minutes, and I was so shocked I was just saying, no, it's okay, I just got scared. Really, no problem, just go. Well, he says he doesn't see me well and asks my name. Twice. He says, well, so I guess I'll wish you a good night then. He kisses me on the cheek like we French do. But once again, I'm half naked in my bed, dead scared, and he is in a suit, all dressed. I don't even know what I could have done. He left after the longest minutes, saying how he was so sorry and how he would appreciate if I didn't tell anyone. And now the phone in the room just rang. I don't know if I should still be scared. Was he just confused by the mistake? I am super scared though. I cannot think right now, my heart is still racing. I just need to have some rational feedback after this, really. Update 1, I am okay. I live in a small town and work in a neighboring town. I got off of work last night around 10:30 and was feeling pretty okay because I didn't have to work Easter. I was planning to go to Walmart but wanted to get gas from a closer gas station because I had their rewards card. Now, living in a small town, there's not too much to do around here, especially if you're between the ages of like 15 and 20. So, going back at least 3 generations, the teens in this town, which I always call my hometown, spend their Friday and Saturday nights driving from AutoZone down 3rd Street about 5 blocks, turning onto South Main, driving 2 blocks, turning around in the pawn shop and driving back the way they came. I know it's boring, but it's all there really is to do that isn't illegal. So I went in and paid for my gas and noticed a woman standing in the corner, glaring out the front of the gas station. I didn't think much about it, so I just headed back outside. The night was nice, so the drag was still filled with a few cars, and the AutoZone across the street was still filled with parked cars of people around my age or a bit younger. There was also a pickup filled with high school boys at the pump across from me, who were minding their own business getting gas and snacks. Suddenly, my chill mood is interrupted by the same angry woman who was in the store. She started screaming in my face. I'm sure I got some of her spit on my face. Get your ass home. I'm tired of all you kids driving around at night. Get out of here. She screams, loud enough for the rowdy guys in the pickup next to me to go quiet. Oh, and she also said I needed to stop having sex and being a slut. I'm a virgin, mind you. She keeps yelling about teenagers and how disrespectful we are. And since I had just gotten off work, I was sort of brain dead and blanked out until I heard my gas pump tick off and the lady was still screaming in my face. About $13 of gas later. She had worked herself into a sweat and was breathing heavily. And as a somewhat overweight person myself, I can tell she was having a very hard time at it thanks to her size. My mouth just dropped open and I pulled the pump out of my tank. I mustered up the only response I could think of. Ma'am, I'm 20. I just got off of work and I'm getting gas. Somehow this crazy lady gets angry and tries to step forward. And she's already too close, when the boys in the pickup start laughing. Hey lady, I'm 17, the driver yells. Then the 4 other boys, now out of the truck, got into the act, yelling their ages. Crazy lady, now having multiple underage targets, goes chasing them. The boys are screaming and laughing at the 60-year-old lady while she chases them around the truck. I thought, screw this, and climbed into my truck. The driver of the truck, the only one who was in it, looked at me like, now what? So I motioned for him to move. He honks and yells for his friends to jump into the bed. 3 of them made it in, except for the bigger kid, who I think said he was 16. The old lady had grabbed his shirt and wasn't letting go. I had started to drive away, but stopped when I heard that 16-year-old yelling for her to let him go. While the other guys told her to screw off, she started to claw his arm with one hand and tried to push him to the ground with the other. Out of all the times for the cops to not be driving around, this was the time. I climbed out of my truck mumbling to myself, no, 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 thinking I was going to have to save a kid who wasn't exactly too much younger than me from being killed by a crazy bitch. Thankful for the group of people across the street because they noticed and started laughing and screaming at the crazy lady. She lets go of the 16-year-old and starts hobbling to the curb. The 16-year-old starts to scramble and I, already being tall, built, and filled with adrenaline, check him quickly before throwing him into the cab with the drivers and telling him to leave now in my best mom voice. The driver nods and the other boys are still screaming about that crazy bitch, while the 16-year-old just nods and tried to hold back tears. He peeled off and is gone. I climb into my pickup because I saw that lady coming back and started it up and drove around, telling her to get out of here. I decided to go on the drag, mostly despite this crazy woman. I drove off and went on the drag 2 times and saw the crazy lady on the corner of the gas station with her arms crossed, flipping off every teenager who passed by. I go by the 3rd time and she's gone. I'm wondering if she went home or worse. Went to one of the parking lots where people park to harass some more people. It was the latter. There she was in the AutoZone parking lot screaming at some girl before a guy got in between them. I stopped and watched and was happy to see that they seemed to be handling it. And by handling it, I mean harassing her back. There was a guy who had a repurposed scooter/cart and kept doing circles around her. I drove off and when it was getting late in time for curfew, I pulled over and talked to the group and guy on the scooter and apparently she had enough and just trudged into the darkness behind the gas station. I pointed out that the houses behind the store are known for meth heads and the group agreed she was probably on something. Ended up hanging out with them the rest of the night. Pretty chill people. The guy on the scooter was hilarious. I never saw those dudes in the truck again that night. I just hoped that 16-year-old wasn't too scared.